When I was a kid, there was a monster under my bed. It was large and terrifying, with long limbs and claws and patchy hair, and a low, guttural growl. That growl is what I remember the most. I would hear it at night. I would know that it was just a foot below me, separated only by my bed. I can't count how many nights I would fall asleep to that deep, menacing growl. Of course I would tell my parents about it, and of course they didn't believe me. They thought I was imagining things. I mean, think about it. It's the classic monster under the bed story that every parent has heard 1,000 times before. And if my kids started telling me there was a monster under the bed, without knowing what I know, I probably would just shrug it off too. So my parents never really did anything. But to be fair, for the time being, the monster didn't either. I couldn't explain then why it seemed to be so stationary. It almost never came out from under my bed. Every once in a while at night, I'd see a shadow of one of its tendrils or claws in the moonlight, or catch a glimpse of part of it peeking out from below the bed. But that was about it. Until one night. The evening started off as normal. My parents got me ready for bed, and I fought them on it, partly because I wanted to stay up and play, but also because I knew I was once again going to be sleeping right above the den of a potentially dangerous beast. My mom tucked me in, and as she did, as I did every night, I asked her over and over to check under the bed. They had done so in the past and saw nothing, so she dismissed my fears, even making a comment that I was getting a little too old to believe in this kind of thing. She left the room, and I was alone. And then, just like most nights, I started to hear the low growling and breathing of the thing under my bed. As usual, I stayed up terrified for as long as I could stand, before slowly drifting off to the sound of the creature. I awoke an undetermined amount of time later. It was still night because my room was still dark, and moonlight was coming in through my window. I opened my eyes but didn't move. I heard a sound, but it wasn't growling or breathing. It was squeaking, and it was coming from the window. I shifted my eyes toward the window without moving my head too much. And what I saw absolutely terrified me. There was a man, dressed in all black, slowly opening my window and attempting to climb through. In his right hand, he brandished a knife that glinted in the moonlight. He was being quiet, stealthy, attempting to not be seen or heard. I don't think he realized that I was awake as he slid his body through the now open window. I didn't know what I should do. Should I scream for help? If I did, he would definitely make it across the room and get to me before anyone could make it in here. And then who knows what this psycho would do to my parents? Should I just pretend to be asleep and hope that he leaves and try to get help when he has his back turned? What if he was here to abduct me? All of these thoughts raced through my head as I lay there in silence. I heard his soft footsteps making his way across my room, the floorboards creaking ever so slightly as he walked. Suddenly I felt my bed shift, as if something had bumped into it. But not from the side, from underneath. And all at once I heard a low, guttural growl come from under me. I heard the man gasp, and I turned my head to look, just as a deep roar pierced the silence of my room. 2 unnaturally long claws flew out with lightning speed from under my bed and grab the man, who was being grabbed so tight he couldn't even let out a breath. They slowly pulled him closer and closer to the bed. As I watched, a large, round, gray head emerged from under the bed. It had patchy fur all over and tiny black sunken eyes. It unhinged its jaw and opened its mouth unnaturally wide, revealing rows and rows of sharp, drooling teeth. The man was flailing as hard as he could to escape, but it was no use. The claws drew him right to the mouth of the beast. And when he was within range, the rows of teeth closed down on him with a bloody, visceral crunch. When the creature had finished eating the intruder, it turned its head to look at me. Its tiny black eyes, wide mouth, and round head staring right at me. The subject of my fears and nightmares realized. This monster, my monster, had eaten a different kind of monster. After staring at me for a few moments, it recoiled back under the bed. I never complained about a monster under my bed or hearing growling noises ever again. My parents assumed that I just got over it, or maybe grew out of it. But the truth was, that growling was now more comforting to me, and there were many nights I would fall asleep soundly to that growling, because I knew my protector was right under me. And so now, years later, I have my own son. And recently he's asked me to check under his bed. And, trying to be an understanding parent, I obliged. And when I came back up, I told him it was all clear. Everything was fine, and I tucked him in and left. Because the moment I looked under his bed and saw those two black sunken eyes and wide toothy mouth smiling back at me from the darkness, I knew my son would be just fine. Our story begins with 18-year-old Jerry Howell. Jerry Howell was the son of Paul Howell, who was a merchant who worked at a booth at the Westport Flea Market. Jerry and his friends would sometimes make homophobic remarks at a particular man named Robert Bardella, who worked at another booth close by. It wasn't long, though, before Jerry confided in Robert that despite the homophobic comments by him and his friends, they sometimes made money on the side, selling their bodies as male prostitutes. Robert Bardella and Jerry Howell eventually became, in some ways, friendly with each other, although they would still have arguments every now and then. Often, Bardella would offer legal or financial assistance to Jerry if he happened to get on the wrong end of law enforcement. On July 5, 1984, when Jerry was now 19, Bardella offered to take Jerry to a dancing contest in Merriam, Kansas. Jerry accepted. Little did he know when he accepted that ride, it would be the last one he would ever take. Because the man who was driving him, the man he knew as Robert Bardella, would later be known to authorities and the public as the Kansas City Butcher.